Greetings and salutations to my sisters with voices. Welcome to the Everyday Woman series. My name is Kenitra Mason of Grace for This, and I'm here to tell you exactly that. Why you're grace for this. First, I have to say thank you to Angel Charmaine and the SpeakUpSis LLC, the magazine, the bookshelf. All of the things about SpeakUpSis are changing and impacting generations. So I'm really honored to be on this platform and to share a little bit of my story with you so that you can see my story inside of yours. Let's talk about why you're graced for this. My grace for this journey started in October of 2021 when my husband passed away unexpectedly. It was a very abrupt transition in my life that I never could have been prepared for. So surely I was not. However, I began to commit to the journey and go through the process. I am one of those people, or I used to be the person that was that strong friend who did not need help, who would handle it on her own. And I knew that going through a loss as traumatic as losing a spouse unexpectedly, that I would need to get help and I would need to truly take ownership of my wellness journey. Grace for This is a community for women of faith who are taking ownership of their wellness personally, relationally, and professionally. And I have been able to develop this community because I can build what helped me heal. So let's talk about grace. Grace is the acronym for my journey, and I'm sharing it with you all today. The G stands for grief. The R stands for rest. The A stands for aid. C is for community, and E is for evolve. Let's start off by talking about grief. Might we say trauma? These terms are connected to a point of transition in our life. We all can think back to a moment where everything changed. And that moment can cause you to begin to have a grieving process. That moment could be a point of trauma because it turned a situation or something that was familiar to you into something that might have been dangerous, might have been hurtful, or just no longer fond. At that point in your life, in my life, I began to go through a grieving process because what I knew was no longer. And I had to take ownership of the fact that I was going to become someone else. And you don't always want to let go of who you are because who you are was good. It was comfortable. But in this grieving process, I was reminded of the stages of grief. As a registered professional nurse, we're taught DABDA, which stands for denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. These stages of grief are applicable at any point in our lives where we experience a transition. So whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it's when your parents got a divorce as a child, whether it's when you moved away from your best friend or your high school sweetheart broke your heart. These are points of transition in our lives, and they can begin a grieving process for us. But if we never actually acknowledge that we are grieved or hurt by something, we can't get to the place of acceptance and become the better version of ourselves post that experience. So the most important thing about this grace journey is to acknowledge the grief, the hurt, and the trauma that you have experienced so you can begin to heal from it. The second letter is R. R is rest. If I may tell on myself, and a lot of people who will see this, who know me, understand that I was the busy friend. I was at this place helping. I was serving in this capacity. I'm driving up the coast to help with this event. I'm volunteering to serve in the community. I even launched a nonprofit organization called Bonafide Impact Academy in June of 22 because my heart was still to serve. And because my husband left behind such a beautiful legacy, how can I not make it my business to make impact? But before I can go out and build all these things, I need to make sure that I'm not running from my grief and deciding to rest. So resting was very challenging for me. I'll say that again. It was very challenging for me to choose rest and to choose quiet and to choose stillness because my normal nature was busy, busy, busy. And I did not make room for me to process what was going on in me. So the beginning of my grief journey showed me that there were some habits and some practices that I was accustomed to that were no longer going to serve me well. They were not going to be healthy for me as a grieving widow to go through a process or a healing journey and be better at the end of it. So the R is for rest. Choose to be quiet. In your quietness and your stillness, you'll learn to understand and feel what's going on with your body, and you'll become more perceptive and aware about the things going on around you. So choose to rest. Next, in Grace for This, we have the A. The A is for aid, or simply asking for help. Oh, we don't like to do that because we are strong women. Phenomenal woman, phenomenally, that is me. But guess what, phenomenal woman? You need to ask for help. Because you have taken the time to rest. You have learned about yourself. You have learned more about your actual capacity. You've learned the things that you do because you enjoy them, and you've learned the things that you do because of allegiance. And we have to be careful to choose alignment over allegiance. We need to choose to be in a place where we're supposed to be rather than in a place where we are connected and we have close relationships. Because no matter the closeness of a relationship, if it's not where we should be, then it's not going to serve the way we think it should serve. And doing that, we are learning to ask for help because we have learned to be aware of what our strengths are and what are the areas that we need support in. Notice I didn't say weakness, and there's nothing wrong with being weak. But if there is an area that is weak, that is where you go and you reinforce. That is where you go and you provide additional support, because this particular area requires special, needed, additional attention. There's nothing wrong with needing additional attention. It just means that that area is just as important as any other area. So we have learned to ask for help. We've learned to get assistance when we need it. We've learned what our strengths are, and we reinforce ourselves with support in the community that has strengths where we need support. So simply decide to ask for help. And resting helps you to be clear on what your ask is. You know exactly what you don't have capacity for. You know exactly where you need help. So asking for help won't be as hard. Next, let's go to the letter C. C is especially important to me because it stands for community. Did you like how that rhymed? I didn't even plan that. Community is pivotal. Community is what has saved my life. Community provided safety for me. Community provided validation for my experience that I was in the moment that I had. Community provided love and support, and community provided me with a different perspective, because you only have eyes to see what you're familiar with. And it's hard to see something that you've never seen before. So going through your grief journey or going through your healing journey, it begins to change your perspective on the things that you see around you. And it's important to have community that can help you manage your perspective. It doesn't negate what your perception is, because your perception is your reality. But the perspective of somebody outside of you will serve you when you have ears to hear. So I encourage you guys to choose community and choose it wisely. It doesn't mean that you connect to the first person that you see, or someone who gives you that compliment, or somebody who gives you the semblance of a safe place. You have to choose and test community. You test environments. We like to say you try them by the spirit, from where I come from. You test the spirit of the people who are around you, and you decide based on that information that you capture. I'm also a data analysis. So based on the data that you capture, you make a decision. If I can simplify, you judge a tree by its fruit. And that's what's important in community. And so don't run from community, even if community is what hurt you. That's a very real experience. Some of us have been wounded in places that were supposed to be community. We still need the community. We have to heal because the support is there, and we've got to be ready to receive that report. So I still champion community. We need it. Just connect with the right community. Lastly, the letter E tops it off. E is the icing on the cake. Why? Because this E stands for evolve. We have taken ownership and acknowledgement of that thing that caused us grief. We have rested from the fact that it is what it is. So we begin to heal and hear about ourselves and how we've processed that experience. We are choosing to ask for help because we know where we know where we need support. And we're finding community that is helping bring perspective to our evolution. We have decided to evolve. When you put all of that together, you are becoming the next best version of yourself. And I am passionate about creating spaces and events that allow people to have courageous conversations where they leave the next best version of yourselves. So I encourage you and I admonish you, do not despise your journey. Do not despise where you have come from. You can ask the questions about the why, but let us consider the what has come, the what that has come from what our journey has been. Be encouraged, my sis. You have gone through this because you're graced for this. You made it through the other side of it because you were graced for it. And not only were you graced for it, you're graced to tell the story. You're graced to use your voice so that another sister can come to your Everyday Woman series clip and be encouraged by your story. In closing, I would like to share a scripture with you that was impactful, and I have it printed on the back of a journal that I designed for myself as I was going through my grace journey. And it simply says, "But because God was so gracious and very generous, I am. And I'm not about to let this grace go to waste." 1 Corinthians 15:10. My sisters, be encouraged. You've gone through this because you're graced for this. Thank you, Speak Up Sis. Thank you, Angel Sarmaine. Be encouraged and get ready for the next episode of the Everyday Woman series.